So, on week two, our topic is principles for environmental management. And I'm going to use a particular framework for this discussion, which is called ecosystem based management. It really is the broader way that we look at it, and it's become the modern construct for environmental management. Difficult to do, but it provides some sound advice and principles by which to think about as science contributing to environmental management. I'm going to explore four key elements of ecosystem-based management: integration, adaptation, precaution, and sustainability. You'll learn more about those. And there are readings that I've provided as required readings, the ones listed here, but also in the Moodle site, there's additional readings that if you want to dive more deeply in the background, you can find out more about these issues on your own. So now, conventionally, we manage things one at a time. So in a natural resources department, we might have a group that works on forest and on forest management, on wildlife and on fisheries. And within fisheries, folks and people thinking about managing oysters, striped bass, blue crabs, menhaden and the like. And yet these things all interact, in food chains. Also with respect to the environmental protection department, there's typically an air quality group, a water quality group, a solids group, and then even within the water quality, those that look at nutrient issues and as well, or toxic issues, for example. And then, like in Maryland, we have a land use planning agency that works on the spatial use of land from urban transportation systems, agriculture, and so on. So this is our conventional worldview. So what this ecosystem-based management approach allows us to do is to gradually build on the evolution of integration. So we now try to manage these fishery resources in multi-species management, managing the effects of the menhaden harvest on striped bass, for example. And then also in fisheries, we've moved to what is now called ecosystem-based fisheries management, looking at not only the fish stocks and their interactions, but looking at it more widely being affected by what goes on in land and what goes on in the water with respect to nutrients, toxics, and so on. So ecosystem-based management is a framework in which we can look and evaluate these things all together. It is an integrated management approach that recognizes the full array of interactions within an ecosystem, including, very importantly, including humans, rather than considering single issues, species, or ecosystem services in isolation. So a more detailed definition is one derived by a paper that we have as the required reading, Long et al. And they took the broader literature, scores of papers that discussed ecosystem-based management and kind of sorted through what most of them felt was the essential elements or the components of ecosystem-based management. And I won't go through this all. You have the reading. You can explore this yourself. But I've underlined key words here. Some of these parts of the definition, like developing scientific knowledge and using scientific knowledge, or effective monitoring, or stakeholder involvement, or really processes that are really important. But I want to talk about is the principles that we need to keep in mind. The first, and it's demonstrated here by the underlined word interdisciplinarity, but also down here is integrated, is just that, integration across disciplines, but across from users and sectors and media and the like. We'll be looking at that moment in a short time. Also, ways that deal with uncertainties, how we should take precaution before moving ahead, what do we need to know, what kind of confidence that we need to have, how do we, even when we don't know enough, how can we make sure that we're being adaptive as we learn more by doing, and then to achieve sustainable solutions. So those are the four principles we'll discuss: integration, sustainability, precaution, and adaptation. This notion of ecosystem-based management has now been incorporated in a number of government management policies, and particularly the National Ocean Policy that was developed during the Obama administration. And it is a key element of managing our nation's environments. So again, these four elements, and I just want to show you some things that we'll be exploring in greater detail here under these. Under integration, we'll be talking about this an emerging idea of ecosystem services, of integrating how the environment works and how it affects humans in particular. Spatial planning, how do we talk about the multiple uses in parts of the ecosystem on a spatially integrated framework. Adaptation, this notion of adaptive management. How do we get better, learn by doing, and make our management outcomes more effective? And the precautionary principle under precaution and resilience, a particular interesting component of sustainability. So integration. We can look at integration across disciplines as the definition suggested, so that a biologist needs to work with a chemist and a physicist and maybe even a sociologist. We could also look at it with respect to the media. So air, land, and water all interact. We know that particularly from the Chesapeake Bay region, where we have things that come in from the air, go down through the landscape, and affect waters, both running waters and coastal ocean waters. So integrating across those boundaries are often very difficult because the professional groups are often divided by those media. Ecosystemic, how do we bring this all together within a concept of how the ecosystem works? Intersectoral, among user groups, recreational fishermen versus sport fishermen, those interested in conservation of diversity against the fishermen, all of those kinds of complexities that we have to work on finding solutions that integrate among those users. And then finally, intergovernmental. What's the role of the national government, the state government, the local governments in making this all happen? This concept of ecosystem services is now been around a number of years and been used as a concept, and in some cases in a very good practical sense as well. So what it does is that it links the ecosystems that support us with what we gain from them in terms of our security, in terms of our basic material for a good life, our health, and our social relationships. So the concept of these ecosystem services, and you can read more about it in the readings, but there are some that are supporting, waste removal, disposal, nutrient cycling that support basically the processes on which we depend. Provisioning, things that we directly draw, food, fresh water, wood and fiber, fuel, those sort of things are services that are provided to us by ecosystems. Things that regulate our environment, climate regulation is the key and obvious one, but also how ecosystems affect floods and regulate that, disease, water purification, and the like. And then cultural services that are provided as well. So this is one way that we can think of how we can couple the natural parts of the ecosystems and the functions that we have with the human well-being. It also helps us understand more of the conflicts here. So you can see here this graph that shows you the potential for mediation of these socioeconomic factors rated by high, medium, low. Don't have time to go into great depth on ecosystem services. It's a very large volume of literature, but the point I want to make is that this is a component of integration within ecosystem-based management. Another is spatial planning. There's a lot of interest. It's been pushed back through the political special interest, but there's been a lot of interest in spatially planning the coastal ocean. So we can look here in our coast of the northeast U.S. This is Cape Cod here and up here, and this is a way to kind of overlay lobster management zones, mandatory ship reporting for safe passage because of the impacts on whales, right whale habitat. So this one's specifically designed to assess some critical issues with respect to marine mammals in this case. But you can see it's a typical GIS approach where we overlay these various sectors in order to understand the conflicts and how we might resolve them. Again, another example of how we can integrate that principle of integration within ecosystem-based management. One of them, for example, of this conservation, you might be aware of this issue of marine protected areas or sanctuaries is one aspect of a spatial designation for conservation, just as an example. So we've covered, again, the broader concept of ecosystem-based management, and we've explored the issue of integration and given you a couple of examples, both with respect to spatial planning as well as ecosystem services. In part 2 of this lecture, the next video, we'll talk about the remaining 3 principles that we laid out.